Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson, and we want everybody with an invisible condition, no matter what that condition is, to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that they do have a voice, they do have a community, and they are not alone. You are never alone. And to that end, I have an amazing guest today. Ellen Busch describes being raised in a loving family, but she realized that life's challenges had left her a little traumatized. And I mean, family can do that, you know? Even though Ellen escaped from an abusive husband, she was controlled by the unshakable stigma of dyslexia that, I mean, honestly, just destroyed any any sense of self-worth. And Ellen she is absolutely passionate about helping people now who are dyslexic and in understanding really that they are not broken or handicapped and they are not alone. She is committed to supporting women who are in abusive relationships or who have escaped them, to really get the resources they need to get out safely, heal, and create a new life for themselves. So it's awesome what she's doing, and I can't wait for you to meet her. She is an avid alpine and telemark skier and a hiker who actually lives in Colorado, just like me. So I'm pretty excited about this. This is awesome. I don't get a lot of guests that live in the same state as me, so this is exciting. So let's welcome Ellen to this show. Ellen, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. I forget to remind me again. I'm sorry. Memory's the second thing to go, and I forgot the first. Where are you in Colorado again?
I'm in Westminster.
Right.
So
okay.
About halfway between Boulder and Denver. And just like spring in Colorado, we're having a bit of a thunderstorm, and we're supposed to get a big storm up in the mountains tonight. So
I was just going to say, I heard, somebody was just telling me that you guys were supposed to get like 2 or 3 inches of snow overnight or some crazy thing. Yeah.
2 or 3 feet.
Stop. What?
Yeah.
2 or 3 feet?
2 or 3 feet. Yes.
Oh, wait, because you're on the way to Boulder. Yeah. Closer to the mountains. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually heading up after, later on today to go ahead and meet up with my friends and ski tomorrow. So
nice. Oh, that's awesome. Where are you going to go skiing?
Breckenridge.
Oh, I love that town. I have relatives there that have been there for decades. And so that's been like our go-to. That's my favorite. That's Breckenridge, and maybe Steamboat's my other favorite. But
yes, I understand why. Yeah.
Steamboat's lovely. Incredible. But Breckenridge is so familiar. We've been there so many times. It's such a great mountain, or 4 mountains, I guess. But we'll have fun. That's going to be a blast. I'm kind of jealous. I'm a little jealous. I haven't been snowboarding in a couple of years, so it's been a while.
You'll get back out there.
Oh, I know. We'll get back out there. We just gotta find the time, man. With 3 teenagers, But it's all good. We'll figure it out. So, all right, here we go. Let's dive in here. Can you please just share with us your experience? I mean, the story to me is just crazy, but can you just share your experience growing up with
Sure.
dyslexia, how that kind of came about, like
Hmm.
how you found out that you had it, and how did it impact you as a child?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was diagnosed by the school system. And originally, I was diagnosed as ambidextrous.
Oh,
And then
wow.
they did further testing and said that I was dyslexic as well.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, when I went through the school system in the 70s, though it was an affluent New York City suburb, that the school system had lots of resources. But the belief system at that time was that it was an intellectual disability.
Mm.
And my parents were sat down in a parent teacher conference, and my parents told me this story. Um, they were told by an administrator that I might be able to finish high school. College was out of the question.
Oh,
I would not be contributing to society other than as a wife and a mother. And they should focus on finding a good husband who would take care of me.
my goodness.
Yeah.
This was, how old were you?
6 or 7.
6 or 7, and they're jumping to that conclusion at 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. And this was in the 70s, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was the beginning of my education experience.
Wow.
Fortunately for me, my parents just didn't accept that.
Oh, good.
And thank God.
Right.
And that parent teacher conference ended with my mother pounding her fist on the desk, saying, "I refuse to allow you to condemn my daughter."
Yes. Good job, Mom.
Yeah.
All right.
So they just didn't accept it, and they went to work, and they did everything they could to support me, helping me with my homework, getting involved and talking with the teachers consistently.
Yeah.
And my dad was my cheerleader. He and I had this little mantra. I said, "You know, you can do it, Ellen. You know, you can do it. Prove them wrong. Prove them wrong."
Yeah.
And, they really worked to support me,
Love
and
it.
it made a big difference. But despite all of that, I was labeled as a second-class citizen.
Mhm.
And the teachers, many of the teachers, not all of them, but many of them, just treated me like I was never going to be a success. I was wasting their time. I was never going to go to college. So there was really no reason to focus on me and foster my learning. Now, my father understood that the real learning happens outside the classroom.
Yeah. Yep.
And he taught me everything he knew. We had a summer home on Fire Island in the South Shore of Long Island, and he had a fishing boat. He was an avid sports fisherman.
Cool.
And he taught me how to read nautical charts. He taught me how to use a compass. He taught me how to pilot his boat.
Wow.
I used to stand on an upside down bucket so I could reach the steering wheel and see the compass in the bow.
Hey, whatever you got to do, right?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly. At 15, he sent me on Outward Bound. Game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, big deal, big experience. And 17, he sent me to get certified in scuba diving, which was something I was so excited about. I nearly jumped out of my skin.
That's so cool. Oh,
So I was learning at a very early age how to overcome challenges. And my dad gave me those tools. My mom supported me through the education system. I had the right parents.
Yeah.
And actually, something that's kind of interesting too is that the school system held me back from learning to read for 2 years.
Wow.
Because I had the ambidextrous diagnosis. The thought process at the time was that I didn't have a dominant eye. I know. It's probably considered a bunch of malarkey these days.
Well,
And, but that didn't matter. That affected me. And they held
Yeah.
me back from learning to read because they said I didn't have a dominant eye. And if I didn't have a dominant eye, I couldn't track words across the page. So the
Okay.
end, like June of second grade, I started to learn to read. So that put me behind my peers by 2 years.
Right.
Automatically, right there.
Wow.
That was my starting point. So I worked hard. And I did learn, and I struggled, but I've learned ways to make the classroom fit me, because it certainly didn't. But unfortunately, throughout that process, and despite my parents' love and support, my self-esteem was destroyed.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed. I went on to college, got a bachelor's degree in allied health. I went on and got my master's degree, MBA. And I still didn't believe in myself. I was so completely traumatized.
Jeez. Yeah.
And, you know, when you're in that state, and this is, you know, where the conversation turns to supporting anybody who's been abused, men or women. It happens to men too.
Yeah.
Often, yeah, it does. And I'm surprised at how many men are being abused. And in talking with other podcasters, it's shocking.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It really is. But one of the things I've learned, and this is part of my message, is that if you have low self-esteem, if you have low self-worth, you're a target.
Can be. Mm-hmm.
And predators are out there and they're looking for you. I was bullied. I have been bullied in elementary school. I've been bullied by managers. I had 2 men stalk me.
Oh, geez.
And then I ended up in a marriage to a narcissistic jerk. And we had an incident of violence, and I actually had to plan and execute an escape.
Oh, man.
And that's when I got to work. That was my bottom point, you know, my surrender point. And I got to work.
Yes.
And I understood that if I didn't change this pattern, if I didn't take a long, hard look at myself, this was going to happen again. And I got lucky to survive it the first time. Yeah. I might not be so lucky the next time.
Yeah.
So I was willing to do whatever it took and went to work with coaches, therapists. And then things got better. I started to heal and things got better. And it just became like rungs on a ladder. And at some point, the healing and the therapy work started to turn into self-exploration and learning to thrive.
Love it.
And I've even trained with retired Navy SEALs. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Hard work, but a lot of fun.
I love that. That is fantastic.
And then I did some private coaching with a recently retired supervisory FBI agent and did quite a bit of self-defense training.
Yeah.
And trained with Dennis. And actually I flew out to Washington and did 2 days of training. He put me through 22 hours of training in 2 days. That was pretty hardcore.
That is hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
But that's what I wanted.
22 hours in how many days?
2 days.
Okay. That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
Yep. First day was 12 hours. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. So pretty intense training.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Well, I just let me just throw this out here for anybody watching that has. I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah, there is. So I wrote a book.
Well, and we'll talk about that too.
Sure.
For sure. Anybody dealing with any of this, I mean, this is a lot to absorb and to deal with and to live with and to realize that's happening, right? Because it's not always obvious.
Right.
Dyslexia or really anything else that we talk about. If Ellen says something that resonates with you, you go, I need to talk to her. Mm-hmm. Please reach out. Please reach out. I'm going to put the QR code right here. And this
Absolutely.
QR code will go, this is the best place to go. You've got all kinds of resources there. There's a very easy way to reach you on there, I imagine. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
You can email me right from there.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's perfect. So yeah, I'm going to leave this on for the majority of the show here. And
Sure.
anybody that, I mean, no excuses. It's super easy for you. All you do is pop that QR code and you are in. So
Yep.
if you have questions and you want to talk to Ellen, please reach out. So
Yes.
that's why we're here. That's what we're doing this for. So I mean, you are no stranger to stigmas. I mean, stigmas are a thing, you know, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that, I mean, obviously you've overcome some of that. I mean, always still work. It feels like it's always a work in progress, but how was that in like high school and beyond? Like how did that make things interesting?
It made things really tough. And
Yeah.
I was always in fight mode.
Oh, sure.
I was always battling something. Fortunately, you know, but I had support. And I had support of my parents. So that was enormously helpful. If I didn't have that, I don't even want to think about what that would look like.
Oh man, it would have got ugly quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I had to put it aside and just focus on what I needed to focus on, which was getting through classes.
Yes.
You know, another thing that my dad taught me at a very early age, I'm 6, 7 years old, he taught me about micro goals, which is something that the SEALs teach. Micro goals, just one micro goal after another. And my dad used to say, Ellen, one question at a time. Just one question at a time. That's all you have to do is one question at a time.
Yeah.
And it was skills like that that helped me to persevere. But I had to make a very conscious decision to fight and to fight through what other people thought was easy.
Man, yeah, it's totally true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's the perception of all those other people. I mean, you can say sticks and stones and all that, but it doesn't matter. You're still affected.
It hurts.
By it.
It
of
hurts.
course it does.
Yeah,
of course
it does hurt. It's and especially, you know, as a child, your brain is still developing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's traumatic because we don't have the coping skills or the brain development. You know, I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not an expert, but this is pretty logical.
Yeah.
You know, to be asked to cope with things like that at such a young age, you're not going to have an experience like that and not be traumatized.
Right.
It just comes with the territory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. It's so crazy. Yeah, and so many people deal with this and nobody knows what's going on. Like nobody knows. And so, yeah, that's the frustrating part is that nobody understands because nobody can see it going on unless you say something. And then if you say something that can it's almost like, yeah, no, it's not, that's not really going on.
Or it's perceived as a behavioral issue.
Oh, sure.
Or it's a ADHD issue, or it's, you know, and that is a real issue. I don't want to diminish that. People look for other answers. You know, I had outbursts as a child. I was frustrated and I was angry and I was traumatized and I lashed out. And that's perfectly logical considering what I was going through.
Yeah. 100%.
I used to get so frustrated with my math homework every night. My mom would sit there and she'd help me. And it was almost became a daily thing that I would throw my homework and the pencil across the table, off the table and across the room. And then she would get me to calm down and she would sit down and she would work with me through it step by step.
Yeah.
But that's painful for a child.
You know, but I think you and I talked about this when we when we were talking about doing this show, and you and I both had very supportive parents.
Yes.
Very supportive, and never letting anybody say, no, no, you can't do that. You've got a condition, or no, you can't do that. You've got this disability, or this something that's holding you back, whatever. None of that nonsense.
Right.
We had parents that were amazing, and never let us do that. So I think that's a big part of it. But even if somebody doesn't, that's a different story maybe. But yeah, it's it's hard enough when you have that. So
yes, it is.
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, time flies so fast, and this is crazy, but I feel like this is a good spot to take a break. We've got the first part of the story. We've got the, let's take a break. We're going to take a short break, but do not go anywhere. Anybody, stay right there. We're going to come back, and after the break, we're going to come back and talk more about the triumph side of the story. This is Ellen did not let this. She didn't quit. I mean, obviously. And we're going to hear a lot of the rest of that story here in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere. Stick around, and we will see you in just a couple of minutes.
In a world where office workers typically receive 130 daily emails and have an 8-second attention span, CoreCentrica, with her 4 decades of international marketing experience, has partnered with the Learning Code Institute and their 30 years of neuroscientific research. Together, we are crafting unique messaging strategies that resonate, connect, and ultimately convert our target audiences. CoreCentrica, where award-winning creativity and disruptive neuroscience come together. Scan this code now, or call and click, and let us show you how CoreCentrica's partnership with the Learning Code Institute is influencing how businesses connect with their audience, foster engagement, and achieve conversions.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
Hey, everybody, before we bring Ellen back, I'm just going to take one more minute of your time. I'm so excited about this place, and I want to tell you about it. It's called The Porch, and they are in Portland, Oregon. And so next time you're in Portland, you got to check these guys out. They're amazing. Brett and Molly doing a phenomenal job with the help of some amazing staff and volunteers running this place. It's a nonprofit. It's a coffee space that was created for community, really, and it's a nonprofit that seeks to provide training and opportunity to those who've been kind of overlooked in our community. You know who I'm talking about. And really what they've found is that coffee is a vessel, and it crosses every boundary, and it can help you to preserve dignity through the act of generous hospitality and really ultimately building relationships with your neighbors. And so you can be a part of that story from anywhere you are in the country, because they ship anywhere in the US. And I've got a couple of varieties back here that are phenomenal, and I'm running out, so I need to order more. But if you like good coffee, jump on here, scan this QR code. I'm making it way too easy for you. Scan this QR code right here, and you can order coffee and say hi to Brett and Molly, and see what they're all about. see how good the coffee is and see the impact that it's making. So, all right, everybody, let's bring Ellen back on here so we can continue with this story, which is
Sure.
awesome. All right. So we talked about, so obviously it was a rough start. You had, it's, but you obviously didn't take it lying down, and you had amazing parents that supported you and an amazing family that supported you. What has that led you to now? I mean, I don't want to skip over anything, but
Sure.
we can fill in some blanks too, fill in some gaps of the story too. But I want to make sure we get to what you're doing now, because it's phenomenal. So,
Sure.
So tell us where people are going to go when they scan the QR code and everything that's there for them.
Sure. So that goes right to my website, and that has resources or organizations that I have worked with or supported. And there's also resources for somebody who needs to get out of an abusive relationship. There is a national hotline, and then most states have a hotline as well, or have resources. And one of the organizations that's on there is Outward Bound.
Oof, love it.
And Outward Bound was incredibly important for me, because it was the first time I got out with a bunch of peers and I didn't have the dyslexic label.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I found myself naturally in a leadership position. I kind of got to experience life without the dyslexic label and got to lead my peers.
Yeah.
And that
Nice.
showed me what was possible.
Yeah.
And Outward Bound, anybody who knows what Outward Bound is, it's an outdoor education system or school.
Yeah.
And it's all about taking on challenges and overcoming them. And I learned I was really good at that.
It's almost like you had practice.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man.
So I have carried that forward, and that is now a theme in my life. And I continuously look for challenges. And I seem to be in this new cycle in life where I take on a challenge. I learn, I transform, I grow, and then rinse and repeat. Go find another one.
Right? Rinse and repeat. I mean, that's a good cycle to be in, honestly, because really, I mean, you're God, or whatever your belief system is, will present you with challenges until you figure it out. Right? You just keep getting hammered by the same thing.
Oh yes.
Until you get it figured out, and then you move on to the next. You don't get to relax. You go to the next one.
Right.
And so it's just, that's what life is, So yeah,
it's constant change.
And to be able to handle those properly and overcome them and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
I imagine Outward Bound was huge in that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And learning and getting certified to scuba dive.
Oh yeah.
That's another scary, uncomfortable thing. But with each challenge and transformation, you take yourself up a level.
Exactly.
And you learn and you grow. And the next challenge is often even bigger.
Yep.
And they can be fun. These challenges don't have to be, scary or, painful.
Oh yeah.
They certainly are sometimes. My most recent challenge is learning to telemark ski.
Oof.
And that's
a challenge.
That's not easy. And there were a couple days I questioned my decision.
Yes.
But the other thing I've done is I've done it very consciously. I work with instructors. So I'm actually in a club at Breckenridge.
Nice. Yeah.
And we're instructor led. So I'm always in class, and we meet for 10 Saturdays in the winter. And so I'm working sometimes one-on-one with an instructor.
Oh.
So
Love it.
This is another point too. If you're going to take on challenges, physical challenges, running, rucking, those kinds of things, or learning to telemark a snowboard. One of the things I really encourage people to do is to get properly trained.
Yes.
Work with a qualified, credentialed instructor, or whatever it is you're doing.
Yep.
So
100%.
it's really important.
Whether you're learning to snowboard, telemark, ski, shoot, play basketball, whatever. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
every time speaking of that kind of thing, back when I was, 15 or 16, when I learned how to snowboard, and I I had skied up until then. I was really good at skiing, but I'm like, I want to learn whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fun, and I've never looked back, and I've been snowboarding ever since. But when I learned, it was one weekend. My parents, we went up there. We had a condo in Breck, and so up in Breckenridge, and so we stayed up at the condo, and I took 2 back-to-back full-day lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Rented the board and the boots and all the stuff. And after that 2 days, number one, I was hooked, and went out and got a snowboard the next day, because I was like, I'm never looking back.
Yeah.
But number two, I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was doing because I had 2 solid days back to back with an instructor that knew what he was doing.
Yep.
And I had the proper instruction and the patience and all the thing. And so, I mean, and that could be for anything, but that is one of my most vivid illustrations of it is, man, I probably wouldn't be doing it today if I didn't have that 2 days of lessons, because when you try to do it on your own and you don't get the help that you should, it's frustrating, it's painful, it's just not great. And that goes across anything.
It does. And sometimes you can get injured or worse.
Right?
In the case of scuba diving or skydiving, you better learn the basics.
Yes. Skydiving is kind of a one-time thing. Yeah, you don't want to, you can only screw it up real bad once. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I just learned to really have fun with these challenges.
Yeah.
And to seek out really interesting challenges, which is how I ended up in the Unbeatable Mind program, which is led by retired Commander Mark Devine, retired Navy SEAL.
Nice.
And he has a program for civilians.
Cool.
And did some really great adventurous training with him. But it's another example of learning from an amazing instructor.
Yeah. 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 Once you have that amazing, I've had that experience a few times in life, where you just got trained by the best, you're like, wow, that was cool,
Yes.
And you never forget it after that. You're like, okay,
no,
I'm in now. So.
I did a 3-day training called sheepdog training with them. And it was
I'm jealous.
It's I'll get you the information, or anybody go to Unbeatable Mind and find the information, unbeatablemind.com. But we did 3 days of emergency medical response or emergency medical training, martial arts and self-defense training. And then we even did some firearms training.
Nice.
I'm not a gun enthusiast, but my father wanted me to know how to safely handle a firearm.
Yes.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Better than unsafely. So.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So my first day on the firing range, I got to work with a retired Navy SEAL, a man who served as a Navy SEAL for 20 years.
Wow.
Talk about learning from the best.
Woo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And learning to thrive is so important it's about moving past whatever your traumatic situation was. And it's part of the reward, doing things like that and learning to teleski and learning to snowboard and those things. Those are the rewards.
Oh, yeah.
And it brings back joy into your life.
Yep.
But the other thing I think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand is the importance of doing the trauma work.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to do it's work.
It is work. It is work.
Yeah. You can't skip it.
No, you can't, because it'll drag you back.
It'll find you. Yeah.
It will.
It's just like those challenges. right?
Yes.
If you skip over any of those or you try to take a shortcut, it will just land you right smack dab in the middle of it again, and you'll have to do it, and it'll be harder that time.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it'll probably be a harsher and worse lesson.
Yeah.
Usually is.
Usually is.
Yes.
So tell us about so I know this will be on your website, but tell us
Sure.
about your book.
Oh, sure. Well, I have it right here.
I hope you did.
Absolutely.
I hope you might.
Always have it.
Yes.
So the title is Disempowered, but the DIS is crossed out. And it chronicles a lot of what we talked about.
Yeah.
Starting out in childhood, how I was completely disempowered by the education system and the impact that had on my life, the traumatic impact it had, and how it led me to being, abused, gaslighted, manipulated, bullied, and controlled. And then when I finally had enough and I actually reached my surrender point. And I looked up at the sky and said, I'm all yours. I don't know what else to do. And that's when things started to get better. And that's when I went to work. And I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure I would never go back into that painful place, those painful experiences.
Yeah. I mean, because you still have, you didn't get rid of the dyslexia.
No.
You still have it. It's not like everything's cool because that's gone now. I've outgrown it or whatever.
Right.
You've learned how to live with it and learned how to not suffer with it.
Yes, I've learned how to work around it.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is I've changed my perspective on how I see it.
Yeah.
And I've done that through research, and the scientific community is really starting to change its attitude towards dyslexia. And that's, thank God.
Right.
And
there's a lot of that happening now with a lot of conditions, and dyslexia is definitely one of them.
Yeah, it is. And if we look at some really interesting historical figures, many of them were dyslexic.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein,
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Edison, Winston Churchill, President Kennedy,
Wow.
Sir Richard Branson, Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg, Jennifer Aniston. Tom Cruise. The list just goes on and on and on.
Wow.
And I don't think any of us would think that they have an intellectual disability, especially Einstein.
Come on. Really? I mean, yeah. Okay. The rest of them, okay, but I mean, the rest of them are awesome in their own right. What they're doing is great, and like they're amazing in their own craft, But Einstein, like you're right, Einstein, you're like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on. So, yeah. Wow.
So when you start to look at it from that perspective and seeing the world is starting to change, dyslexia is so common at MIT, they call it the MIT disease. Now, I don't like the term disease, but the point's made.
Yeah.
Sure. British intelligence services are specifically recruiting people who are dyslexic.
Wow.
Because they are able to see patterns, and things that other people miss. And it's one of our talents. Along with our struggles comes a list of talents. And seeing patterns and visual spatial skills are just some of them. And
it's kind of like,
really
I had a conversation. I can't wait to get this guy on the show. So watch, but he was diagnosed autistic in his 60s. And he's like, good Lord, what a difference it would have made if I was diagnosed when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
But he said there is a huge number of people on the spectrum of autism and Asperger's in the IT and tech world.
Yes.
And same kind of thing, right? It's like, go where your strength is, man. And,
exactly.
And so because with autism and Asperger's, same kind of thing. There's challenges, but there's also some amazing strengths that some of us don't have. So that's a really cool way to think about it. Yeah.
And another example would be NASA. NASA actively recruits people who are documented as dyslexic because of their visual spatial skills. Now, it's the way that I like to describe
Wow.
it. Our visual spatial skills are so strong. It's kind of like we're born with CAD software.
Yeah, the 3D, the kind of flipping around and the
Exactly.
right.
We can do that all in our mind.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
Oh
it's
man.
you start to change the way you look at things, and the things
Yeah.
you look at change, and that's a big piece. And
Yeah.
it's a big piece of my message. Legally, I am handicapped, and I am protected
Wow.
under the ADA, and dyslexia is a category that is protected.
Huh.
But the reality is I'm not handicapped.
Yeah. That's
Isn't that interesting?
that's kind of surprising. Honestly, I'm still kind of, I kind of had to catch my breath there when you said that. That's kind of surprising to me. I can't believe that's shocking to me that dyslexia is on the that's on that registry. Huh.
But it goes hand in hand with the belief system that it's an intellectual disability.
Well, sure. Okay, then right. That makes that makes sense. Then then you could go that route. Okay.
And actually that is very important.
Yeah.
Because once a child is diagnosed as dyslexic, and I hate the word diagnosed, but it is the correct word.
Yeah.
They fall into that ADA protection.
Yes.
And schools must provide accommodations. And schools don't really want to do that because it's expensive. So
it can be.
It can be. And I actually have a friend somewhere in the United States, I will not tell you where, who works in the education system and specifically works with the learning disabled program in her school district. And she has been told that she is not allowed to use the word dyslexic or dyslexia. If she does, she will be fired.
Oh, Lord.
Because once a child is diagnosed, they fall under those protections. And this particular school district doesn't want to deal with that. And
Yikes.
that conversation was within the last 5 years. So
I could see that happening in 20 years ago.
Right.
But that was less than 5 years ago.
I will say less than 5 years. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So getting the services that you need really depends on your zip code. And that's unfortunate.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it also depends on your community, your affluence, your resources.
Well,
so
yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So one of my core messages is that you're not broken. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they may have labeled you dyslexic, but you actually have amazing talents. And you know what? MIT, NASA, British intelligence are all saying that out loud and saying it publicly.
Nice. So there's your prospects there. Those are pretty stinking good prospects if you're looking for something to do after you graduate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's unbelievable. I mean, not so much. I mean, I say unbelievable, but that's only to say that's incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, this is all stuff that this is all this is opening my eyes to all kinds of stuff, like, because I'm not in that world. So this is all so cool to learn. Learn something new every day, right?
Yes. Never stop learning.
Oh my gosh, never. No, you better not. Yeah.
Yeah.
You better not stop. If you stop learning, you probably stop breathing. So,
right.
Well, oh my gosh. Well, I tell you what, I think we're going to go to one last break, and then I can't wait to come back though, because we're going to talk about how hope plays a role in all of this, because it's a huge role. Hope is a big deal, and so we're going to talk about that when we come back, and then we'll make absolutely sure some more that people can get in touch with you so that they can get some resources. So don't go anywhere. Last segment's coming up. We'll see you here in just a couple of minutes. right, welcome back, everybody. We are so close to being done, and I hate that because we could go another hour, I'm sure. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff we could talk about, but
Easily.
we got about 15 minutes to go, and I just want to make sure that we talk about one thing that I always bring up with every one of my guests because it's a big deal no matter what condition you're dealing with, living with, your loved one is living with, and that's hope. And so I have a question that I like to ask everybody, and that's on your hardest days back in the day or now. I mean, there's still hard days. You're still upright and breathing. There's going to be hard days. So on those hard days, when you are at the bottom, how do you find hope?
I think it starts with me of just not letting the naysayers win. I just wasn't going to let them win. And I knew that if I just kept going and kept working hard, I could do it. I learned how to outwork everybody.
Yeah.
And it pays off. It pays off. Now, the other thing too is that I always had the support of my family. So I had that in my back pocket. I learned to, as an adult, to research things, educate myself. And the other thing that's really important, and so many people are hesitant to do this, is ask for help.
People are dying to give it to you.
Yeah.
People are just dying to give you help.
Yeah.
All you have to do is ask.
Yep.
Because,
let somebody know you need it.
You heard anything I can do, just let me know. And it sounds like it's a flippant thing in passing, but honestly, if you ask them, they'll help you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, and that can be the neighbor, the friend, the coach, but there's other resources that can help. There's government agencies, there's support organizations, there's houses of worship, there's there's a myriad of resources. Some more expensive than others, and some with no expense.
Yeah.
It's about finding the resource that you need at that moment, and that will help you to keep going and not give up on yourself.
And after you ask for that help and get it, you will not believe how good it feels.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because you've overcome the fear of asking for help. That's the biggest one.
Exactly.
Like stepping through those doors of whatever organization you were afraid to go into because you're afraid you get judged or whatever.
Yep.
And then you get the help. And so it's like twofold. You're realizing you were courageous enough to do it. And then you get the help. You're like, oh, and that's a nice bonus too.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Pretty awesome. So, man, what's the best part? If I was going to send somebody to your website, like where would you say, make sure you go here first? Like, check this out.
Yeah, I'd encourage them to read my story, especially if it's somebody who is dyslexic, or if it's a man or woman, who's in an abusive relationship and you're afraid to leave. I do have, like I mentioned before, I think it's the National Abuse Hotline. Yeah. There's a link there. Understand that you're not alone. Yes. And you said this in the beginning, in the intro, we're never alone. We just have to reach out and ask for help. And I'd encourage people to explore those resources and that I have listed, as well. It's my story is unique, but everybody's story is unique.
Yeah.
And I would, I'd ask them, is there a place where you and I relate? Where do our stories kind of cross over, if you will? Because that gives, when we can learn from each other and support each other, that's what gives our story and our pain meaning.
Yeah. It's true.
Mhm.
Yep. Once that one person relates to, like, validates that,
Mhm. You
Yeah.
know, so really my book is about my hero's journey. And anybody who's familiar with Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey
Mhm.
understands that process. And the last part of the process is to bring back to your tribe what you've learned.
Yeah.
And that's my reason for writing my book and telling my story, because I have learned so much and I'm so darn lucky to have survived.
Yeah.
And I just feel this overwhelming sense of responsibility to share what I've learned, because I know there are people out there who are going to be helped by that. And that matters.
Hmm.
That's a place where I can make a difference. And I don't want anybody to go through what I went through.
Right.
They shouldn't have
course.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're in a similar situation, learning from each other and learning from stories can make a big impact.
Yeah. Well, and it's always better to learn from somebody else's experience in this situation.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
You don't have to repeat my experiences.
yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't be like, you know what? I bet it's not that bad. Let's try it. No,
Right.
no. It's okay to learn from other people's experience. I wish I would have learned that younger, honestly.
Yes.
It's okay to learn from other people's experiences. You don't have to bang your own head against the wall to realize it hurts. Okay.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So this book could be your learning from somebody else's experience type of thing.
Right.
Get the book, read it, because I'm sure the story that's on the website is not as extensive as,
No,
right? You
it's
tell a little synopsis of it and say,
exactly.
you want the rest of it? Check
Read the whole book.
out. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's your go-to right there.
Exactly. And I am available for coaching,
Yes.
So, and I'm happy to talk with dyslexic parents of dyslexic children.
Love it.
What a dyslexic child goes through is really rough. And I don't think parents necessarily understand because they're not living it themselves.
Yeah, it's true. How could you possibly? No.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's not your fault. It's just you don't know.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't possibly know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So it's okay.
Yes, exactly.
But you still have to get the help for your child. So yeah, it's okay.
Yes. And emotional support and psychological support are very important as well. It's not just the classroom support, the academic support. It needs to be emotional support and often, psychological and maybe even trauma support.
Right.
And that was certainly my case. So yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I hate to even utter these words, but we are out of time. And the show goes so fast, and we have gotten so much amazing information. And I'm so thankful that you are here and that you were so open to sharing your story and getting this out so that people could reach back to you and get the help that they need. So thank you so much for being here.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's every time I have an opportunity to tell my story, I hope I'm reaching more people with my voice and helping them.
Yes, 100%. It's so needed, and we're so thankful that you were here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Man, that is so cool. I love having stories like that. Stories are great, and especially the ones that are like this. I love having guests that have amazing stories, and I know I say this all the time, but I love this one. This was such a great story. And I'm so glad that what she's doing is helping and impacting others. So if you want to reach out, please reach out. Back up this episode and scan that QR code and get in touch with Ellen. So, and thank you for watching. If this is your first time, thank you. If you've been watching for a while, thank you. Appreciate you. Please go to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel and share and subscribe and, all the things, so that you can always be, in the know about what's coming up, because we got some amazing things coming up the next couple of weeks too. So join us for our next episode, which is going to be Tuesday, June 4th. Can't believe we're already going into June. Time flies when you're having fun. So join us June 4th and for another amazing show. And until then, have an amazing day, and we will see you next time.